Donald Trump signed an executive order to create America's first ever sovereign wealth fund, a potentially multi-trillion-dollar investment powerhouse that could become one of the largest funds on earth by 2028. We go backstage with Anthony Scaramucci of Skybridge Capital and ask the question, will America be buying Bitcoin for its fund? The numbers could dwarf any Bitcoin strategic reserve we've ever imagined. Let's mine deep. A sovereign wealth fund is basically a nation's piggy bank, a stockpile built to store value across generations, not election cycles. Abu Dhabi's wealth fund is backed by oil money. Singapore built one from trade surpluses. And they don't just sit on piles of cash. They buy assets that governments don't trust their own central banks to hold. Stocks, real estate, gold, and now in some cases, Bitcoin. Norway's sovereign wealth fund owns nearly 1% of MicroStrategy, representing almost 4,000 Bitcoin. The Abu Dhabi Investment Authority has even made large investments in Bitcoin mining. And now the US is joining the party. Except this time, we're talking about what could be the biggest sovereign wealth fund in history. The man deciding what assets go into it, Howard Lutnick. Lutnick is Trump's new Commerce Secretary and also happened to be the CEO of Cantor Fitzgerald, one of the largest investors and custodians of Tether. And if that isn't enough of a resume to show you his connection to Bitcoin, here's what he said just months ago at the last Bitcoin conference.
Does Cantor Fitzgerald own Bitcoin? A shed load of Bitcoin. My view is Bitcoin, like gold, should be free to trade everywhere in the world. And as the largest wholesaler in the world, we are going to do everything in our power to make it so. Bitcoin is the same as gold, and Bitcoin should trade the same as gold everywhere in the world without exception and without limitation.
Here's the problem though. The US doesn't have an oil surplus like Abu Dhabi, nor does it run consistent trade surpluses like Singapore. This fund isn't being fueled by excess revenue. It's being created out of necessity to compete globally. Which brings us back to Howard Lutnick, the man who will ultimately decide how this $27 trillion machine is structured. Cantor Fitzgerald oversees Tether's US Treasury holdings, which are the primary means to collateralize the Tether stablecoin. But they're not the only thing. Tether also holds over 83,000 Bitcoin, which they've been stacking with excess profits since 2022. When Bitcoin was just 19,000 per coin, meaning they're up well over 100% their investment. Tether has proven that by holding Bitcoin on its balance sheet, it can enhance liquidity, credit worthiness, and financial stability without relying on traditional banking infrastructure. Now scale that up to a sovereign level. Imagine a world where the US isn't just selling debt to finance operations, but using Bitcoin as collateral to enhance its purchasing power. The president is already there. Just swap out Tether for US Treasury, and you have a blueprint for a monetary revolution. So why should you care? Because this isn't just about a new fund. It's about a new financial order. A Bitcoin strategic reserve sounds bold, but getting it through Congress? Good luck. Some lawmakers still can't even say Satoshi right.
I don't believe that Satoshi Nakamoto.
But adding Bitcoin exposure to a new sovereign wealth fund? That's a move that doesn't necessarily need congressional approval. And it's already happening in many countries around the world. And according to David Sachs, the United States crypto czar, Trump is looking at doing both.
We're still in the very early stages of this, but that's one of the first things we're gonna look at is the feasibility of a Bitcoin reserve. I think the concept of the sovereign wealth fund is a little separate, and you'd have to talk to Secretary Lutnick, or soon to be Secretary Lutnick, about that.
If America moves now, it leads the Bitcoin era. If it hesitates, other sovereign funds will get there first. Either way, hopefully you've already front-run America with your personal Bitcoin stash. If not, you should probably stop watching this video and get to it. Don't miss Anthony Scaramucci Backstage.
And one of the things that I noticed is like now you see Bitcoin on the balance sheet of all these businesses. How is it for you as an investor? Like, do your investors, do they get nervous still? Because let's be real, it's new in a way for them.
They do. I have a lot of investors that were very mad at me for making the investment. We've had 2 great years. I'm not allowed to talk about our performance publicly, but I'll just say this. Bitcoin was 17,000 2 years ago in December of 2022. It's 97,000 today. And I own a lot of it. So you'd imagine we've had probably 2 of the best investment years that I've had in my career. So clients are happy today, but I have to confess that we're not happy when I made the investment because it's a hard thing for older people to understand. But we made the investment in 2020 and we stayed in it. And I think we've been rewarded now. And of course, the clients that had the willingness to stay with us have also been rewarded.
Your former boss is back in office again. Do you think Trump has changed substantially as a person since 2020? Or have we changed in terms of how we understand him?
Yeah. No, I don't think he's changed. And I think if you're saying maybe we've changed, but we're more accepting of some of his idiosyncrasies, that's perhaps true. But listen, he won that election. We live in a democracy in the United States. And my team lost, he won. I wish him great success as president. I think it's important for the world that he is successful as the American president, and it's certainly very important for our country. So, I'm a good sport. We lost, he won. Wish him nothing but great success.
And what do you think is the single biggest piece of deregulation that could boost the U.S. economy?
Well, specific to Bitcoin, it would be clarity about allowing Bitcoin to be held at large money center banks. That custody issue would be huge for Bitcoin. As it relates to deregulation, I'm really more thinking tax policy more than deregulation. I'd like to see the state and local income tax deduction go up for the blue states. I even think the president understands that that would be beneficial to the economy. But if you're looking for a specific piece of deregulation, it probably has to be in the oil and gas industry.
So you have Bitcoin, and then you have the Federal Reserve. Do you think the Federal Reserve is going to give up that easily?
Well, I don't think they have to. I think Jerome Powell said at Andrew Sorkin's Deal Book conference last week that he sees Bitcoin as a store of value and a complement or a competitor to gold. He doesn't see it as a threat to the U.S. dollar, and that's more or less how I see it. So I don't think they have to give anything up, but I would like to see the Federal Reserve yield on allowing money center banks to custody Bitcoin for its biggest customers.
But do you think Bitcoin will be ever used as peer-to-peer electronic cash how it was intended?
I think it will be used because you have the Lightning Network, you have things like Stacks, where you're going to be able to run transactions over the network. And obviously it's being used currently in El Salvador, and it will eventually be used in other places. But it doesn't mean that it will crowd out fiat currencies. I just think it'll just be another system of payment, and you'll have that option. You'll go to a store and they'll say you want to pay in dollars, you want to pay in euros, you want to pay in dirhams, you want to pay in Bitcoin. You'll have that option.
Do you think the dollars will be backed by Bitcoin eventually?
I do think that there will be a component of the U.S. balance sheet that owns Bitcoin the way it owns gold, and I think it'll provide a lot of comfort and safety to the U.S. dollar that the U.S. has a strategic reserve in Bitcoin.